Hey, what's going on, everybody? Alex with you here again. Thank you for dropping by. Thank you for tuning in. As always, it's great to see everybody back. I haven't had a chance to be very active on my channel recently. I've actually been sick. I've had back issues, recurrent back issues actually. I got sick. I think I had COVID. Then I got better and tried to get more videos out, and then I got sick again and actually lost my voice for a couple of weeks. So today I have another chess set to show you. I think about 6 months ago when I went to Connecticut, you guys have seen me do a review of a travel chess set that I purchased, I believe, from Chess House. It was a really nice travel chess set at the time, but I remember at the time when I was making that review, I actually was out there looking for other travel chess sets, and whether maybe due to delivery issues at the time or maybe price just being a little too high, I ended up just having that one travel chess set. Although I wanted to kind of have multiple videos of different travel chess sets because people out there wanted to kind of have me do different comparisons between travel chess set. And so for today's video, I actually ended up going to House of Staunton last week, and in the imperfect section of House of Staunton, I ran into this particular chess set, which is the ultimate wooden magnetic travel chess set. This particular one has this book style design to where basically you pop open the particular chess set like this, like a book, and you have a nice 8-inch magnetic chess set that you see right over here. Square size is 0.75, so it's not very big, and the king's height is going to be 1 inch. Overall, the size of this particular chess set is 8 by 8 inches, and the overall dimensions, as you could see here, they're not a very big chess set. I think that if it wasn't for this thickness, it'd be about the same size as the previous chess set, the previous travel chess set that I've shown you guys when I was in Connecticut. So I wanted to kind of show you guys because this isn't the first time that I've seen this particular chess set, and for a while now I wanted to get my hands on this particular one because on the pictures it looked really nice, and I really wanted to get this because part of the very important reason why I wanted to get this specific travel chess set, as I have had people comment on my channel, and also I think that when I did that video of the travel chess set, I did briefly speak about the idea of, like, let's say you're traveling somewhere. Let's say you're traveling on a plane, maybe on a train, somewhere where your hands are free, and maybe you're in a situation where you would like to analyze some kind of a position. So let's say your pieces are all set up on the board, and you're looking and you're making some kind of, I don't know, some kind of analysis, some kind of a conclusions based on that position. Well, let's say you wanted to analyze it further and you would like to take a break, for example. The other chess set that I've shown you guys, you could potentially do that, but the pieces, you couldn't put the travel chess set back into its pouch and have the pieces be there at the same time, stay in the same spot. Here, all you have to do, let's say, some of the pieces are gone, all you have to do is just basically close the set like this, and ideally, inside of the chess set, the pieces would remain standing where you set them. So all you have to do is, after you've taken your break or what have you, you could come back to it and continue analyzing the position. That was the part of the main reason why I wanted to get this particular chess set. Okay. So let me kind of talk to you guys a little bit about what's different as far as the pictures show one thing, and once you actually have, or once I actually have this particular chess set, what are some of the things that I've noticed while having this? And part of the reason why I'm making this video is that, once again, people look online and they think this looks great, it's ideal for what I'm looking for. So that's why I'm giving you these little tiny details that may not necessarily be written in the description. First, let's go ahead and start by looking at the box from the outside. It is made out of really nice quality finished wood. I believe what you see out here on the top is some kind of a veneer finish, but it's really nice and smooth. It's well made wood. It's not thin. It feels thick and it feels sturdy. The box overall, you know, there's no like I can try to put my hands on it. It doesn't wobble. It's really nicely made. If you can see, like on the side, you've got the hinges here, and the hinges do come out ever so slightly, but they're not in a way. So you could throw this in luggage bag. You could throw it anywhere. You don't have to be necessarily concerned about the hinges being like ripping on your clothes or anything like that. But overall, you can see that once the box is closed, there's no real gaps or anything anywhere. So that is kind of nice. Okay. When you open this up, it's not really easy to open because it has these little magnetic things right over here that basically come together on both sides and really help to keep the lids closed. Okay, so that way you don't have to worry if you like threw this somewhere in the luggage or something, that this is gonna like open up and all your pieces are gonna be lost or flying every which way. So you could see the very first thing that I want you to pay attention to is that what I thought before I purchased this particular chess set is it did say magnetized, okay? That I thought that magnetized means you could, like, if you remember that one video, and if you don't remember, you can go back and look at that travel chess set video that I did 6 months ago, but you could have like a handoff to somebody to where you hand off the chess set and the pieces would remain where they are because the magnetic pull on every piece was really strong. And here in this case, it's strong. I mean, I'm holding this upwards and you could see that the pieces are not falling anywhere. But if you some of the pieces are a little bit too heavy, mainly the queen and the king. They're a little bit too heavy. So what I've noticed when you set up the pieces, they do sometimes start to slide. And when they're sliding, although they're not sliding right now, well, like for example, here the magnetic pull on this particular bishop is good in some areas, but then in some areas it tends to slide down. My biggest concern here is that let's say you have an actual position. Let's say you're studying some kind of an opening. What happens if you, let's say for example, set and close this box and then you placed it somewhere? Let's say you placed it, you moved it around or whatever, you know. I would like to have the magnetic pull be so strong that my pieces would not you know, fall off like you see here, okay? That's why that would be nice. If you had a stronger magnetic pull, that would be pretty cool. But I think that overall, for it being you know, a chess box and you actually playing chess, maybe the magnetic pull that they have here is good enough. But I've noticed a couple of times I set my pieces up in a particular position and I closed it and they were all over the place after I opened it, okay? That's one thing. Two is that the pieces they have magnets inside of them. So when you're setting up the pieces, in my opinion, the squares here are a bit too small for it to be comfortable. And so what happens is when you're setting the pieces up, especially like when you're trying to begin the game, you're setting the pieces closer to each other like this. One thing that I noticed is that you have to take the piece and you have to actually place it down on its square. If you let the piece drop, so sometimes when we're setting pieces, we kind of get them close enough and then you drop it. What I've noticed is, especially the pawns, they tend to, as they're dropping, they tend to kind of like fall and get magnetized to the piece right next to it instead of falling on its square. So because there's a magnetic pull between the pieces, and because, like I said, because the pieces are kind of small already and the squares are kind of small, it makes it a little tricky. Now, when one of the things that I mentioned in the previous video when I did the travel chess set is I did talk about this particular design, and I mentioned the fact that this has borders here, which is kind of nice and neat, but the borders prevent you from taking your fingers and picking up some of the pieces next to the borders. I mean, it's not like they're preventing you, but my fingers aren't necessarily all that big, but I could see that some people with slightly bigger fingers might have a little bit of a harder time maneuvering around these pieces just because they are a little bit smaller, the board's a little bit smaller, and overall everything's compact as it should be because it's a travel chess set. But overall, I think that I kind of wish that this was more of maybe like a 10-inch instead of an 8-inch. So that way maybe they could make the squares a little bit bigger, or maybe they could make the space right between the borders and the actual board just a little bit bigger. If we could add maybe like half an inch here to each side, so that way when we're picking up the squares, we could have a little bit more room. That would be quite nice. But ideally, if we could just expand the square size from maybe like a 0.75 to like a 0.85 inches square, that would make it a lot more roomy. Leave the pieces the same height, the same size, and you would eliminate a lot of these little tiny issues. I mean, they're not terrible issues, but they're there. So I feel like the squares are, I mean, they're proportional to the size of the pieces and everything, except for the king. The kings, as you can see here, the king and the queen are a little bit too, let me show you. If you can see right over here, most of the other pieces, like they'll have the room. I'm looking at the screen on the side to kind of get an idea, make sure I'm showing it correctly. But you can see right over here, this is the king, and then right next to him is the queen. They really have made them a little too bulky. Like I feel like they really try to use all the space of the square, and that kind of does make him a little tricky to maneuver just because they're so big. I don't know if they needed to make him that big, but also because of that, sometimes you feel like, see, like I'm placing it and because the watch, you see that? There we go. It's got to slide, and most of the other pieces don't slide except for, see, it's sliding. Except for the king and the queen, just because they're a little bit heavier. Now, as far as weight goes of these pieces, they're not really all that heavy, but I guess it's because the king and the queen is so heavy that is why these issues occur. I don't like to see pieces slide. Ideally, all the pieces need to be well magnetized and there shouldn't be any issues, but that might be an issue here in this particular chess set. Overall, quality-wise, it's a nice wooden chess set, and this could be a nice gift for somebody, especially for somebody who's on the go and travels a lot and enjoys playing chess. This may be something that somebody out there might enjoy and appreciate. Now, here's another thing. I tried playing a couple of games on this particular chess set. The pieces are a little bit closer together, and all the pieces look nice, but when you have the pieces that closer together, sometimes you have a little bit of a hard time discerning like where the pieces are and which pieces are which, because I mean they've been made well, but for example, if I show you guys right over here, that right there, see that is a bishop, and it really doesn't look like, from the top it looks more like a pawn, and sometimes you can get confused because it doesn't really have a very discernible cut, and it doesn't look like your typical bishop. The knights too, they look like a knight. I mean, you can see that this looks like a knight, but still it's kind of been made a little bit bulky, a little bit awkward, and most of the time you're looking at the game probably from this angle, and what I've noticed is that when you play a couple of games, you can get, because of the space issues, you can kind of be like, I don't know. I mean, maybe because I'm just used to playing on slightly bigger boards, that it can be a little bit confusing. Okay, I think that overall This is a nice little chess set. And you see right over here, when I tried to put them right next to each other, the bishop immediately like jumped on the knight and got magnetized to the side. That's something that seems to be a recurrent theme on this. Like, I just tried to position it back and the knight got magnetized to the rook. Like, the pieces themselves, see, like, now the pawn is magnetized. The pieces like to get magnetized to each other a lot quicker than to the board. So you have to be really careful when you're placing them to not, you got to really put them, for example, like I'm putting it right here. Sorry, I know you guys can't really see them, but don't get too close to the other pieces, because as soon as you do that, you know, you might have pieces that will immediately try to get magnetized to each other. Okay. Nice velvety top right over here. Really well made. It's not super soft, but it's still made in such a way that if the pieces are on the top here, you know, they're not going to get scratched up or anything. Then you have these metal seams here that actually underneath you have the metal hinges. So that helps to kind of protect and make it look nice, and also prevents the top from swinging outwards further than it needs to be. Another thing is that, as far as what I thought about, when you're analyzing a particular position, usually some of the pieces are already out. They're already gone. I mean, unless it's a position in the beginning of the game, if you're playing somewhere down the road, middle, end game, or you're analyzing that position, let's say you wanted to analyze towards the end of the game and you have, you know, 7 pieces on one side, maybe 8 pieces on the other side. Well, the other pieces have to be removed. And when you're playing a game, you can just put the pieces on the side, like for example here, or, you know, or on this side, just to kind of give you guys an example. We can remove the pieces and put them in here, and because I'm holding it on the side, but you know, you're going to be holding it on top like this, so you can just take the pieces out and put them like that. That's fine too. But when it's time to close the box, let's say you're halfway done through the game and you want to take a break or whatever and come back in 5 minutes, you gotta remove the pieces and put them somewhere else. You can't leave them here, because once you start turning it over, pieces are gonna fall. So it would be nice if maybe the top was like really heavily magnetized to where, but at the same time, when you close the top, maybe, I don't know, maybe, because the space in the top is made specifically so that the pieces can all be standing. I don't know, maybe there would be a side compartment or something that could, where you could put your pieces or something. I'm not really sure how that would work. But yeah, if let's say you're playing with somebody and you want to take a break and close, then you needed to take the pieces that have already been taken and put them outside on the table or somewhere, and that way you had to do something with the pieces. You couldn't just leave them here. Or like, let's say you're on a train and you're playing a game against somebody, and then your all stop has come, and you want to take a break and then go to the local coffee shop and finish your game. Could always take a picture of your position and then finish it off there, but you'd have to take your pieces and put them in your pocket otherwise, and go from there. That's that. Other than that, like I said, very nicely made little chess set. Very nicely made, very sturdy, quality wood, quality finish. I think as a gift, this would be really nice for somebody, just because it looks nice, it looks unique. And okay, so let me just show you real quick what this particular chess set looks like up close. As you can see here, relatively well-made proportioned chess pieces, with the only exception, in my opinion, being the king and the queen. They do look like they occupy a little more space than they really need to. It really looks like they've maximized on the amount of space that these pieces could take up. But other than that, the pawns, I think it's the reason being maybe the way that they made these pieces size-wise is that they couldn't make the pawns smaller, because if they made the pawns a lot smaller, then it would be harder to play with them. But pawns they're not super big, but they're still relatively good proportion pieces. That's the thing. You see, like whenever you put a piece down, you have to be careful. You can't just let the piece be placed down. You can't like drop it down. You have to actively take the piece and put it down on the board, because otherwise if you drop it, what happens, it immediately tries to stick to the other pieces. Same with the rook. So see what happens. It immediately drops and it wants to magnetize to the other pieces. That's one thing that I found was a little bit annoying, but it's not that big of a deal. Knights aren't super well like detailed or anything, as you could see here. They're just sort of like, you know, normal looking, kind of like a German knight, but not really. I guess with the pieces being that small, they don't really do a lot of details on them. I mean, nevertheless, it looks like a knight, so I suppose that's really all that. Nobody's going to be looking at these pieces really up close. The bishops right here, I think the bishops could have been done a little bit differently. I think the top of the bishop looks a little too round, in my opinion. And the cut's there, but the cut isn't as evident on the dark bishop as it is on the light. And it's just, when you're playing the game, you can kind of get a little bit confused about, you know, whether the bishop, you know, what it looks like. And not really, but I don't know. It kind of looks similar to a pawn. But other than that, it's a really nice little chess set. Like I said, I've been kind of sick recently, so it's been really hard for me to be able to take the time to make the videos. I ended up injuring my back and then getting sick, and then my back was so injured that all the tendons and the muscles were really tight on one side. So I've been like sick and coughing a lot. So you can actually tell I have a very nasally voice, and every time I cough, it like pulls on everything on that side, and it's really painful. So it's been, I don't know, it's been kind of tough. And in the midst of all that, I've been trying to work out still, even with my back being a little sore. And I think I did my back in by doing some jumping exercises and stuff that I probably think shouldn't have done that. I hope all of my chess friends here on this channel have had the time recently to play some chess games. I actually started a profile back in September, and since September I've played quite a few games, and out of those few games I think I ended up losing about 270 games, and I won probably about 300. So when you lose so many games, then each individual game, like whether you lose or not, ends up not really being that significant. I think that for people out there who only have played a few games, whenever you lose a game, you feel like that loss is more significant, and then you get upset more if you haven't played a lot of games. If you already have played thousands and thousands of games and you're used to losing or winning, then it's not that significant to you. So whether you lose or you win, you realize the takeaway from each individual game is not necessarily to be happy or unhappy with the win or loss. It's just basically whatever elements of the game that you've taken away, whatever considerations, whether you had the time to think of certain maneuvers or traps or tactical elements, that's really what it's all about. It's not about, whether you win or lose any games. So as always, I hope you guys take the time to enjoy playing some more chess games. Be sure to leave that like button and be sure to comment below, and I'll try to read your comments when I have the time. In the meantime, everybody stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Okay? Bye-bye.